Uh, Hi everyone, welcome to Tech Talks. Right now, you're going to be able to have this fantastic opportunity to ask the exact questions that you wanted to ask before, and you never actually had the right person in the room. Today, we have that. We have this person, David. So welcome, my name's Claire Dyson. I'm the Associate Professor of Digital Literacies here at Swinburne. And I'd like to start this session by respectfully acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, their elders past, present and emerging, who are the traditional owners on the land on which Swinburne's Australian campuses are located. We're honoured to recognise connections to Wurundjeri country, history, culture and spirituality through the locations where we learn, teach, create, and today ask difficult questions of David. And every day we're striving to respect and honour the elders and ancestors of these lands. And I feel really deeply grateful that we're in a moment these days where we actually can acknowledge that. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land right across Australia, and of course internationally if we've got any of our guests who are joining us internationally. So everyone, welcome. Today, I'd also like to acknowledge the amazing Narelle Lemon and Mia Lindgren, who are the co-producers of the Australian Educational Podcasting Conference. They have done such an amazing job bringing us all together and building a community. And I just really want to pay my deep respects to you as well. It's delightful working with you, but also it's really lovely that you're living your rhetoric and building communities together. Today, the workshop is presented by David Yammouni. He is a learning technologist from the Learning Transformations Unit at Swinburne University of Technology. His background is in IT and in audiovisual support, and as well, his background is also in production. So he has got quite a lot of answers that might bleed across a number of forms. So if you're working in sound for podcasting, you may also want to ask today some questions about possibly sound for video or other areas. He's got over 35 years of experience in higher ed and in corporate sectors, and has a great passion for audio and music production. David is our go-to person. He has also created a lovely page on tech tips for audio and visual on our Digital Literacies Hub that I'm going to pop in the chat in a minute. And that has a lot of really lovely tips just to get you going if you're feeling like you're a novice in this area. Our moderator today is Tash Hobbs, who's learning designer from LTU. And I'd also like to do a big shout out to Kim Flowers, who is representing Adobe today. So let's have a look at our agenda. David's going to talk us through some issues around environmental factors, microphone types, which I think we're all desperate to find out about. Have we chosen the right microphone? Pick up polar patterns, sample recordings from different microphones, and then of course tips from recordings. Today is a Q&A. So while David's got a fantastic presentation, jump in at any time and ask questions and really dig deep into David's brain if you want to. He said that I was allowed to say that. Before we start, can you all please turn off your microphones? But we love seeing your delightful faces. So if you do have the bandwidth and you can keep your videos on, we would love to see you. And as I said before, ask questions, so jump on into the chat. This relationship today with the conference is also supported by the Adobe Creative Campus. And of course, what that brings is amazing technical tools that we all as Swinburne staff and students can access for free. And I hope everyone else is jealous about our Creative Campus status. Come on over to Swinburne. Come and enjoy the Creative Campus status, because these are a series of resources that we provide for you. Now, of course, we'll send this out to everyone, and quite a lot of this stuff is open source. So you'll be able to access it even if you aren't one of the chosen Swinburne few. We of course love building our communities much broader than just our little group. So that's all I've got. The last thing I just wanted to say is have fun today. And David, I'd love to hand over to you now.
Thank you very much, Claire, for that lovely introduction. A bit over the top. I'm probably not many of those things at all, but it's very kind of you to say, and I'm more than happy to take them whilst I can. So I'll just share my screen now and start off with my Death by PowerPoint. I'm going to try and keep this bit light and breezy. Hopefully you can all see that, which I think you can. And as Claire pointed out, this is the agenda for today. So there's the sort of 5 areas that I thought you would probably really want to know about. Now, some of you may already know these things, and that's okay. You can just feel free to ignore me during those bits and maybe text your colleagues or whatever it is you want to do. But I think these are sort of probably the hotspot areas that people want to know about. So if all goes well, I should take about 25 to 30 minutes to just go through this and leave us with about a good half hour or so, or maybe more, for you to open up mics and ask questions. Again, as Claire said, if you do ask questions in the chat, I might ask either Tash or Claire or Narelle or whoever to just prompt me, because I've got obviously PowerPoint in full screen mode. I only have one screen, which is weird for a tech guy, but hey, I can only afford what I can only afford, and one screen is the way to go. So let's get stuck into it. Environmental factors. So let's start off and talk a bit about where are you going to record your podcast. Now, a lot of people sort of don't always think about these things because logistically speaking, they say, well, I've got a microphone and that's all that matters. But actually the environment is very important. Are you going to be outdoors? Are you going to be indoors? Are you going to all be talking around the one mic? Are you going to be talking online? All of these factors are important parts of your environment. Now, when you're indoors in particular, and a lot of these things apply to both indoors and outdoors, but indoors in particular, I mean, it goes without saying, find somewhere quiet to record, right? This is really important. The quieter, the better. Get rid of your kids for the day, send your husband off to the golf, do all that sort of wife, shopping or whatever it is that's really sexist and horrible and nasty and I should never have said in the first place. So all of those things, make sure that your house is quiet and that you're the only person if you're doing a recording. Any sort of soft furnishings makes a big difference. So carpeting, curtains, cushions, placing them even around the microphone. I'll talk about that a bit later as well. They really help deaden the sound so that you don't sound like you're in a room and it's got that horrible roomy sound, which is the reverberation that you'll hear off your normal audio. Keeping close as possible. Now, the nice thing about podcasting is that it's audio, right? Rarely is it video, because then they call it vodcasting. So in the case of podcasting, keeping the microphone closer will actually help give you a much clearer, better sound with less room noise. And this is evidenced by some recordings that I've done over many years, and you've probably done yourself. You'll notice that as you get closer, you don't want to get too close so that it's distorting and sounding horrible. But by the same token, as you move further away, things are going to sound different. So find that optimum distance. I normally recommend about 20 centimetres. I'm using a Blue Yeti microphone here. So I try and keep it within about 20 odd centimetres of my voice, my mouth. And if you're using a headset microphone, those little headset microphones, probably about 5 to 10 centimetres away from your mouth. Obviously, there are plenty of distractions, and you will have heard in the previous session, if you were there, some of the noises that happen just in day-to-day life. Your phone goes off, your watch goes off, silence those things. If you're using a computer to record the sound, close your email and turn off all notifications. Log out of Teams, log out of whatever Slack or Discord or whatever you're using in the background. Shut everything down other than the software you want to use to record your sound. Or if you're using a mobile phone or something like that to record the sound, really important to silence it and turn it into airplane mode, right? Because that will actually stop texts coming through or messages or phone calls when you're doing your recording. And of course, if you have a single microphone, it's best to try and get people as close as you can, possibly around it. So remember that microphones have the ability to pick up sound from quite a distance away, but of course that is inversely proportional to the quality of the sound. So the further away you are, the lesser sound quality will be. So now let's talk about some types of microphones. And when I talk about microphone types, these are the actual mechanics that make the microphone work. So the first one I want to talk about is a dynamic microphone. Now, you may have heard these terms, you may not. A dynamic microphone is the type of microphone that you often see singers use. The idea is that it is a small diaphragm, and it's got a coil of wire that moves in and out of a magnet. And that coil of wire then generates electricity, which comes out as a form of audio. There's a lot of black magic that happens in the background. These are great for voice, perfect for podcasting. Why? Because they're optimized for voice sound. And they do work, of course, with other types. I mean, obviously, there's a wide range of quality microphones in all microphone types that you can buy. But these can vary in price quite dramatically. The nice thing is that they don't need power. They don't need USB. They don't need a battery. They don't need phantom power from, say, a mixing console. And that just means that it powers the diaphragm to make it more sensitive. They are often used in those cheapo headsets. So similar to the one here in the picture that you see, the ones that have got the separate plugs that you plug into your little laptop or your desktop computer, they're often dynamic microphones because they don't require power. But the ones they use in those headsets are often very cheap. So you really do get what you pay for. And the sound quality does equate to the quality of the microphone that you purchase. The beautiful thing is, of course, that they are designed for loud sound levels, so people can really scream into them and yell into them, and they won't distort too much. They're designed for that sort of high sound pressure level. And finally, they're great for audio mixers. If you use an audio mixing console yourself at home, dynamic microphones are ideal. You plug them in, they don't require power, the mixer is sensitive to that type of microphone, probably doesn't require much adjustment, and it should just work really well. Another type of very popular microphone, and this is what I'm currently using right now, is a condenser microphone. A condenser microphone uses a capsule that requires power, similar to a dynamic microphone, but you can see again it's used in a wide variety of purposes, and again perfect for podcasting as well. So this is very good and very suitable for podcasting use. As I said before, it requires some form of power, and the reason why is the capsule that's inside the microphone uses some thin film, and it's two little bits of plastic that sort of vibrate between each other, and that vibration between it is charged, and the variation in the charge, the voltage that comes out, actually generates the sound. So they do require power to them. Now again, there's a couple of ways in which this works. In this case here, you've got a USB microphone, the power is coming from the computer. Phantom power is power that comes from a mixing console and is sent back up the same cable that's used to to get the audio out of the microphone. Hence the reason why it's called phantom. They are a bit more expensive, mainly because of the design and they're quite precise items, but they do give extremely good sound quality. And they are optimized for these high transient levels like drum sounds and cracks and whips and things like that. And of course, beautiful for voice. And they're a full range type of microphone. Now, there are other types of microphones. You can get ribbon microphones, for example, which are a special form of a dynamic microphone. They're similar to a condenser in that they use a ribbon, but we're not going to really cover those because these are the two main types that you will probably want. And again, like I said, for podcasting, these are great. They plug in a computer. More often than not, they don't need any software whatsoever. They just plug in and off they go. So now that we've spoken about those different types of microphones, let's talk a bit about polar patterns or pickup patterns and what are they? So when we talk about a pickup pattern or a polar pattern, we're talking about the way in which the microphone gets its sound and the intensity with which it can pick up sound around the microphone head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily stop sharing for a second and show you something. So what I've got here is a microphone. This is, strangely enough, a condenser microphone. You can see inside there, if you look just there, you'll see there's a little capsule there. That capsule is what's picking up the sound. Now, when we talk about polar patterns, we're talking about the sound around the microphone that it can pick up. So it's a three-dimensional space. As you move further away, obviously the quality of the sound drops off. And we have different types of polar patterns, right? So we're going to talk about those now. So I'll go back to sharing my screen and just show you what that looks like. So some of these slides, right? So you can see here that what we've got is a picture of a diagram, a polar pattern. And you can see it's showing you around the actual microphone itself what it will pick up. Now, these vary, of course, depending on the type of polar pattern you're using. But it is important to understand what they mean and how they work. And every single microphone has a polar pattern, right? Or a pickup pattern. So let's have a look at the first type that's the most common type that you'll get in most microphones, and that's called omnidirectional. Now you'll see in this slide, it's just a circle. Now what does that mean in terms of the microphone itself? It's basically picking up in a 360-degree bubble around the microphone head sound equally. So if I turn it this way, or this way, or this side, or that side, it's picking up sound equally. That's what an omnidirectional pattern means. It's a 360-degree sphere all the way around the head. Now you'll notice that in the diagram, it shows you the sensitivity from the center all the way out to a certain distance. Now, this is just a diagram. It isn't fully technical, but basically it's saying the further you get away, the sound drops off in both level and quality. So that's what that diagram means. So here are some of the reasons why or how these pickups work. And you can see it picks up from the head equally from all sides. Really handy if you've got a small group gathered around a table, so that's quite useful. But by the same token, for an individual person just talking, because it's picking up sound from the side as well, if you're in a noisy environment, this can be a little bit problematic. So how do we get around that sort of thing? Well, it depends again on the microphone. And if you pay more, some actually have multiple types of pickup points. So the next one we're going to look at is what we call cardioid. Now, the reason why it's called cardioid is that it's like an inverted shape of the heart. Someone said to me the other day that it looks like a bottom. I didn't think that was really appropriate, but there you go. Peach shape, call it what you will. Now, how does that work? Before, as omnidirectional got everything equally from all sides, this microphone now, with a cardioid pattern, picks up only mainly at the front and minimize any pickup from behind and the sides. So this cardioid pickup pattern is ideal for someone that's doing podcasting, right? You would have it set on your desk or in a stand or in a holder and then have it pointing at your mouth, and it's only picking up at the front. So you can see here it's better suited for individual. What is a problem though with these is because they're not picking up from all sides, if you turn off the side and start talking over here, it doesn't sound anywhere near as good as when I'm talking here. And the reason why is we call that being off axis. So you need to be very aware of staying in front of the microphone and its pickup area. Now, John, I think, asked before in the chat about what's a good mic to use for interviewing two people. Well, once again, you can have microphones that have what we call a figure 8 pattern. So it not only picks up at the back and the front, but it minimizes sound coming in from the side. So it's basically two cardioid microphones back to back. And the beauty of that is that one single microphone can interview, you can stick equally in between two people talking, and it should give you fairly good quality pickup sound. And that's what a figure 8 looks like. So it's minimizing the sound from the sides and making sure that the sound appears and gets picked up at both sides of the microphone's capsules. So again, less on the sides, good for interviews, Again, you do need to be on axis because, again, as I said, these are two cardioid mics back to back. So you've got to make sure your mouth is pointing at the capsules to get optimum result. So now what I've got is some sample recordings. So we've looked at polar patterns, we've looked at a couple of different types of mics. I've got 6 types of mics here that I'm going to play you one after the other. I'm not going to say anything in between, but there's a little descriptor of what each microphone or recording device is so that you can listen yourself. Now, I really want you to be critical listeners. Listen very carefully because the quality of sound will be different for each microphone. So I'll play them now one after the other, and then at the end we'll just go back and talk a bit about each one and what the pros and cons are. This is a sample recording from the Blue Yeti condenser microphone. It's a USB microphone and is powered entirely from the computer and works across all platforms and mobile devices. This is a sample recording using a USB headset on my iMac in a noisy and crowded room. This is a sample recording from my iMac built-in microphone. It is built into the computer and has got noise cancellation, but remember that I'm a fair way away from where the microphones may be.
This is a recording using Apple's AirPods. They have a fairly decent battery life and they work very well on Macintosh computers.
This is a sample recording of the Samson XPD-1 wireless microphone. It has an excellent wireless belt pack and is very good quality. This is a recording from my iPhone 12 Pro. I've just got it sitting on the table and it's a great way to record a couple of people in an interview situation. So there's 6 different types of devices that all have microphones in them that were recording audio. So you can hear very clearly the differences between some of the sounds that you're getting from these microphones. Now, some of you may be quite shocked when you had to listen to example for the Apple AirPods because they do sound quite terrible in comparison to the other microphones that I demonstrated there. And the reason why is that they're optimized for voice and phone calls, but it's the earbuds that they care about. So it's the playback of sound, not so much the capturing of sound. So keep that in mind. Now, they don't always sound that bad. It does depend on the software. But just so that you're aware, all of those recordings were made directly from those devices. I've not touched them in any way other than boosting their volume so that they're about the same. So starting at the top, we've got the Yeti. That's a beautiful microphone. I've been using it now for a couple of years. I love it to bits. It's great. The headset microphone, the LX3000, again, another really good microphone. They're about $40. They're a standard issue at our university, and a lot of people have been using them for a long time for voice chats and video chats, as well as for recording audio. My microphone in my iMac here, I've got one of the brand new iMacs, the little M1 chips that's got the built-in beam array forming microphones, you know, and you could hear the difference straight away. It sounds like you're in a room. There's far more reverberation around the room. The AirPods, of course, you heard the difference there. The XPD-1, now this is a microphone I actually purchased out of a grant that I won. It's a great wireless microphone if you're moving around because the little USB receiver, which you can see next to the belt pack, just plugs into a computer, no software required, and immediately you've got a wireless microphone. The other benefit of this too is that it works with an iPhone or an Android phone with the right adapter, and you can get really high quality sound directly into your device using a microphone like this. They're not cheap, they're a couple of $100, but they're pretty impressive for what they are. Finally, my Apple iPhone. Now, any iPhone pretty much from the iPhone 6 and Android phones are the same, you'll find have got exceptionally good microphones. Why? Because they're a phone. They're designed to be picking up your voice. So their microphones are optimized for voice recording. And you can hear it's almost as good as any of the other mics we've got. So that gives you an idea of just some of the devices that you've got probably lying around the house that you might want to use or you might want to spend. and purchase for future recordings, and depending on the scenario that you're using to do your recording as well. So let's finish up now with some tips. So as I said before, soft furnishings make a huge difference. You'll see here in this diagram that my little Yeti has got a cushion behind it. Now that makes a world of difference. You may not think so, but it actually deadens the sound reflecting from the screen of my computer. Because it's a sharp surface, right? It's glass and it just reflects the sound straight back at the microphone. So this helps minimize it, and you can actually stack pillows and cushions around the microphone to really help deaden the sound. It's great, and it's effective and cheaper than buying an actual audio booth or head, as they call them, that you have to stick around and then stick your head in there and talk. So that's a nice cheap way of getting around it. Now, some of you were talking about this in the last session. One thing that's really an issue that a lot of people come across is that they find that more often than not, when they're doing a live Zoom recording, for example, or a Zencaster recording or something like that, that they're at the mercy of the internet. Now, if the internet drops out whilst you're doing your interview, that can ruin your audio, right? So, as a bit of a precaution, what I suggest is that you run some software on your computer at the same time as your Zoom call. Say something like here, Audacity or Audition or something like that. Have it running, hit record, make it record your microphone that you're going to be using in your Zoom call or whatever, and then hit Zoom and hit record in Zoom as well. That way you've got a backup if something goes wrong. Now, if worst comes to worst, of course, you can use your mobile phone. Just have your mobile phone near your microphone or near your mouth and hit voice memo, hit record, and you've got a backup of at least your recording. And if you get the person at the other end to do the same thing, that way you've got double backup, and often the quality of the sound is even better. So certainly something worth keeping in mind. I'm a firm believer of this, where you spend your own money. You put your money where your mouth is. I pay for all of my own gear because I don't expect my university to provide it to me. I want quality equipment. I'm going to buy the quality equipment and I'll get quality results. You get what you pay for. Now, sure, the university will probably, or your institution, whatever it may be, may provide you with some gear, but it'll never be quite as good as stuff that you can buy yourself. This was also brought up in the previous session, in that when you're doing live video chats and you're doing recordings, one of the things that you will have heard on many, many occasions is you get chopped off, right? People can't hear you when they're talking, and when you're talking, you can't hear them, and so on, right? You want that ability to have what we call duplex sound, where you hear them and they hear you at the same time as you're talking over each other. Putting in a pair of earbuds or headphones will fix that problem almost instantly, right? So we strongly recommend you do that whenever you're doing any type of session recording. And finally, when you get to recording and editing your final masterpiece, don't spend time getting rid of ums and ahs, because, as many of you have pointed out, it does actually alter the flow. Now, if it is driving you a bit crazy, sure, you can edit out the odd one here and there, but just let it go. I think that's probably the best thing. So that's it from me. I have basically said all I need to say. I will now open up. I'll stop sharing and allow you to open up your microphones. I'm sure there's a billion questions here in the chat, which I'm now seeing. So I might have a look and see if there's some that I can think
You can.
of.
Well, I'll ask a couple, because there are a few.
Go for it.
Brooklyn asked the first one.
Sure.
Well, actually, there's a truckload in there.
Yep.
And we're all obsessed with gold microphones now, just saying. So the first, and because I wanted to know if the gold makes the sound better, but we'll get to that in a minute. The first question is, with a wireless mic, where do you clip it on for best sound? T-shirt, close to the mouth, bit lower, in the head?
A perfect question. And often what I say is it depends on the clothing, but ideally right here. So just underneath the chin, in the middle, right? And preferably, if you can, pointing up. The reason why is that if you do have it pointing to the side, if they start moving their head too much when they're on this side and it's pointing this way, the sound will vary, unless it's a decent quality wireless mic. But I normally recommend in the middle, because then that way you're bound to catch everything you need, right? So that's where I would recommend it. If you clip it on a lapel, try and keep it as close as possible. Please don't clip it way down the bottom here. That's no good. You're going to get really bad quality sound, and it's going to sound roomy. You'd be better off just having a mobile phone in your hand and talking into it. If you're doing proper film production, you can get special tape and tape it to your actual chest under your shirt with the special tape that stops scratching noises. But that's a bit over the top. That's where I would recommend lapels. Try and put it as close to the middle as possible and pointing up if you can. If not, keep it flat and try and keep the head of the microphone in the middle.
Stunning answer. Next question from Jason. I feel like I'm a talk show host, actually. We just want to talk about the way that we record two people. So can you just remind us how to record separate files on Zoom? I'm not sure, Jason, if that's what he wanted to know, but is there a way that you can record your voice locally on your own computer, or do we need to get them to then send the file? So what are your solutions there?
So what I just mentioned in one of the last tips, if everyone uses their phone as well as doing the live recording, you've got a backup, right? And then you've got a nice quality recording directly from the phone, which is hopefully closer to your mouth. And the other person at the far end has the same recording. One trick that I often recommend is when you start your podcast, do this, right? That's a marker point so that you can synchronize the recordings later on in a product like Audition. Right? You can use Audacity, you can use Amadeus, you can use whatever tool you use to synchronize. Now, Zencaster and tools like that often record local files anyway, and they do all the synchronization for you, which is fantastic. But if you're going old school, a bit like me, I like to have a backup device. Now, I also do fire up a product like Audition. In the background of my Zoom meeting, I hit record on it, so it's recording my microphone, and I also hit record in Zoom. And then that way I have two high-quality backups if I don't want to use my mobile phone. That way you're getting direct recording on the computer, and it's the best quality sound you're going to get.
And when you go into Zoom, you go into the settings beforehand and ask it to have two separate files, don't you?
Yeah, so that's a different thing altogether. So in Zoom, there is the ability to have the individual speakers record their local files. Now, it's been a while since I've done it because I'm not normally the host of my Zoom meetings. Someone else is always the host. But basically what it does is it does allow the recording of the individual participants as a separate audio file, which you can then mix together using a product like Audition or any other tool that you may use. Those are in the settings. I think you need to go to the audio settings specifically, and there's a special tick box under Advanced that says something like allow participants to record local audio or separate audio or something along that line.
Yeah, and Jason, I'm not sure if the audio then goes to their computer or to the host's computer. So great question. We can probably get back to you on that one. I'm going to open the floor up now. I've heard from the horse's mouth, Elise, that the glamour of gold makes the sound better. I'm just having a look at your Twitter shot right now, and I'm ordering 6 of them tomorrow. But can I open up the floor to any tech questions? We've actually got about 25 minutes.
So just to talk about the gold thing, right? So one of the grandfathers of microphone manufacture, they make very, very high quality microphones, very high quality microphones. And what they often talk about is that they spatter the diaphragm with gold, very fine layer of gold. It's one of the ultimate conductors for this type of electric field. And that's why it is worth spending money on gold.
And I was kidding, but
I wasn't.
Do we have any questions? Just open your mics up. We were going to do this in a pub. Actually, we were going to get you all together in a pub, weren't we, Narelle? And we were going to have David sitting like a king with all of us surrounding him, answering our questions and showing us the microphones.
That was our vision, wasn't it? We were hoping in real life, we were like, this will be a wonderful end of podcast conference, tech talk, networking. Yeah.
Glasses of lemonade. Right.
Yes.
So any other questions?
A question from Leanne is the microphone best sitting on the desk or is an arm better?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. Both work equally well. This works quite well. This is sitting on my desk, but if I do this, you probably are hearing that, right? I'm tapping on the desk, right? It's a pain in the ass. The arm, on the other hand, has got suspension, so it suspends the microphone from the desk, but it is still clamped to the desk. So just be aware of that. So now, of course, there are differences in everything you buy. The more you spend on a boom arm, the better the quality of the isolation of the microphone to the device that it's, or the desk that it's clamped onto. If you've got a desk mount, what I've done here is I've actually put a cloth, like a polishing cloth, under the microphone to try and deaden that sound when I tap or type on my keyboard. So that's, yeah. But I'd say the boom arm does give benefits because you can mount it on something off the desk, which is quite handy, and then pull the microphone down. So I hope that helps.
Christina has a question around a pop filter, which I read as completely different.
Pop filter. So that's what this thing is here. So a pop filter is designed to minimize the plosives, right? P and pop and b, and you know, those sharp percussive sounds that your voice makes. Pop filters do work. Again, you get what you pay for. If you're just using something that's just basically a stocking in a ring, you do get the foam windsocks, of course, that you can stick on top of a microphone as well. They're very good at minimizing breathiness and trying to minimize plosive sounds as well. But pop filters, everything helps, believe me, in those sorts of things. You can get rid of that stuff afterwards in post-production, but it's a pain. You're better off just trying to minimize it at the source. Always record the best quality you can first. We have a saying, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. I was going to use something completely different, which is a lot more derogatory, but...
At least you didn't there, David.
Yeah, I won't do that. But basically, it's very hard to fix something that's broken in the first place. No amount of fixing an audio post can really resurrect some of these files that could have been fixed in the first place just by putting the microphone in the right spot.
John, you've got your hand up, but I just think I'm going to just go over to Elisa's question because it's kind of the same thing. Any recommendations for fixing echoey sound? Gee,
right. So echoey sound is a big issue, right? And it's one that we all try to get rid of, no matter what we do. First things first, get closer to your microphone. I know that sounds uncomfortable, but when you're in an audio environment, who cares? No one's seeing you, right? And if you're hunched up and look like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, it's not going to matter because no one's seeing you. It's your audio that matters, right? So the closer you are to your microphone, the more you're minimizing the sound that's being captured by the room and then coming back into the mic. The second thing is build a sound booth around your microphone. Literally use cushions and towels and curtains and things around the microphone to deaden the sound in the area. Even if you're using a headset microphone, putting something in front of you is going to make a big difference, and around you. Now, you can buy these little portable booths that you get. They're like a little curved thing, and they sit on a microphone stand, and you can actually mount the microphone in it, and it's all foam backed. So it's designed to minimize any reflection that's coming in from other areas around the microphone. There is an echo removal tool. It's called a room removal tool or it's part of noise removal that can reduce reverb, called de-reverb. What that does is it actually gates the sound. So in other words, what it does is reverb is basically the sound that keeps occurring naturally in a room that dies off. So if you did a clap, you get a sharp noise and then there's a bit of a reverberation, and that's the sound of the room. When you use this de-reverb tool, and it's available in Audition and it's available in various other tools, what it does is it chops off that tail and just tries to keep you with the sound, and it sort of chops it off and fades it off quickly so it's not abrupt, but it still sounds like you're in a room. So the best thing to do is to try and minimize the sound leakage around the microphone itself.
Mia had a great suggestion of going back to the 90s and jumping under your doona. That's a good one. That's a good one, Mia. I like it very much. Another quick question from Julia about soft furnishings. So if we're going to stay in this echoey theme, where do you put them? Like,
so
near the mic, behind the mic, behind my head, where?
Yeah. So again, when we were talking about the polar patterns, the pickup patterns from the microphone, right? So depending on the type of microphone that you have. Now, you may not know what your polar pattern is for your microphone. One of the beauties of this particular mic that I'm using, which is the Blue Yeti, is that it's got variable pickup patterns on the back. So I can actually change the pickup pattern depending on what I'm doing. But regardless, one of the things I've noticed is when I'm doing recordings here for some of my training videos, to get the sound really clear, I put a cushion literally centimeters away from the back of the microphone, and I try and even put some on the side and keep myself close. So build like a faux booth almost. Now you can use big chair cushions if you like, and then that way you can stick your head in there as well, and that will help deaden the sound. It's going to look ridiculous, but it's going to sound so much better, and your software will thank you for doing this because it's a lot less stuff that you have to remove later. So I hope that helps.
I've got to follow up on this one, but I am going to jump to John because I ignored him rudely beforehand. John's question was, do you need to record straight to your computer or do you use an interface?
That's a good question. So in the past, I used to have an audio interface, which I paid a lot of money for, and then I found that I was using it less and less. In my days when I was more of a muso and I was doing a lot of composition work, having the audio interface was really handy. But now I'm not doing that work anymore, and I basically plug my microphone directly into my PC. I've got a breakout box that plugs in, and I plug it in that way. I don't need the power of the USB interface or my Thunderbolt interface or whatever type of interface I'm going to use. Sure, there's plenty out there, M Audio, Novation, Scarlett, Avid, there's thousands of them, Arturia and everyone else. They're great. They work really well. If you're using a microphone that's not USB powered, for example, and you might want to plug in multiple microphones and use a mixing console as well. But I don't use audio interfaces anymore because I have no need. All my audio mixing is done in software. So I use a piece of software on here called Sound Siphon that takes my system sounds and mixes them all together. So it means that if I don't hit the share audio button in Zoom, you're still going to hear the sound from all of my software when I play it. So I hope that answers that question. How do I see the screen with all of the cushions, Christina? Good question. You don't. You just, what I do is I know this is a bit old school too. I sometimes print these out so that I can have the paper to the side, or I use an iPad or a phone and have that to the side. Because again, I don't care that I'm not looking at the screen. I'm recording into the microphone. The microphone is the focus of my voice. Nothing else matters. So I can have a device sitting in my little booth and have it just above the microphone and just be able to read. And that way my mouth is still pointing towards the microphone. But if you do need to see the sound, need to see your screen at the same time, I found that my microphone is just the right height. I can scrunch and push the cushion down or get a flatter pillow and just stick it behind. And that makes a big difference.
You guys actually thought he was joking about the soft furnishings. I don't
know. Not at all.
No, I need photos. Dylan, you're up. What amazing question have you got?
I don't know if it's amazing, but I've got a question.
Sure.
Obviously at the moment, everyone, pretty much everyone, at least in Melbourne, is doing interviews online for podcasts. But hopefully down the track, we can get out and do interviews in person again. Is there a particular setup you'd recommend for, hosting a conversation style podcast with multiple people in a room? Would it be best to have, 3 lapel mics, for instance, or some high quality dynamic microphones into a mixer, that kind of thing? What do you think would be the best option?
That's a great question. Again, of course, that depends on budget. If we were blue skying and budget wasn't really an issue, what you just said then makes the most sense. A nice little dedicated recording device that's separate. And in fact, Zoom make a whole lot of podcaster devices. They're amazing. They're a mixing console with microphone inputs, and they've got a recorder built in, all in the one device. They're reasonably priced, and they record each audio track separately inside the recorder. So you don't have to go anywhere else or do anything else. But if you do want to take the sound out, you can plug them in via USB and then suck the sounds down and then synchronize them in your tool of choice. Obviously, nice quality microphones make a big difference. Now, you mentioned lapel mics. You can now buy, someone mentioned the Instamic, I think, inside the chat further back. There are a range of lapel mics that you can now buy that plug directly into phones, for example. So if you're trying to do it a bit more on the cheap, you could buy one for each of your colleagues and give them one each, and they're quite reasonably priced. And even if they wanted to buy one themselves, it's a good thing to have for the future. But definitely, if you've got some nice dynamic microphones that have got a cardioid pattern or a condenser microphone with a mixing console and a recording device, or all in one, I would love that. That would be perfect. And there's a rule of thumb too. So this is something that a lot of people don't know about. But this is mainly for when you're amplifying the sound as well. So if you're in an audience and you want to use a PA to broadcast the sound, the rule is that it's a 1 to 3. So the distance from you to your microphone should be 3 times the distance to the next person. If they're any shorter, that's going to mix the signals and cause some problems, right? Feedback and fallback and all that sort of stuff. So, but when you're recording, it doesn't really matter because, of course, you're not amplifying the sound anywhere else. So you're just recording straight into the mic. But a mixer with some great cables, good cables, and some good microphones with stands, both desktop and boom, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, great, thanks.
You're welcome.
It's very clear that there's differences in sound. I think we can all hear the difference between me right now and David. And it's not just because I have a chirpy 13-year-old voice and he sounds like he's from the ABC. It's also because there's an excellent mic and I'm just doing it off the computer. Does anyone else have any other questions? Oh, here we go. Julia, can you talk about gain levels and settings?
Right. That's a really good question, Julia. So one of the things that you'll find is that some of these, what we call analog microphones, where they've got this type of plug at the bottom and you plug them into the microphone input on your computer or on a mixing console, they require a gain control. Now, what that means is that the output that comes out of a microphone is very, very small. You need a device that will boost that signal so that it's at a reasonable level to record, but not distort. And so that's where we talk about gain levels. So you'll find that depending on the microphone, you may have to adjust the gain level setting. Now, in the case of computers, when you plug a microphone in, whether you're in Windows or Mac, if you go to the sound control panel, you'll notice that there's a volume control for the microphone, and that's the input gain. In other words, it's taking the signal that's coming from the microphone and boosting it there. Now, you need to adjust that so that if you see a little meter, you've occasionally seen maybe the meters in Windows or on a Mac, and they've got a little meter that moves up and down when you talk, and it shows you the level. Now, you don't want to get into what we call the red. The red is distortion, and in digital land, that's really bad. It becomes crackling and quite distressing to the ears. We recommend that you go in the green up to the yellow. So it goes green, yellow a little bit, and then red a little bit. The reason why is you don't want to go into red. Red will distort and clip, right? Clipping is like a form of distortion. So you adjust the gain to bring it down if it's too hot or loud, and you boost the gain if it's too low. Now, there are some things you need to be careful of. Some of these microphones by nature are noisy, right? Because the signal coming out of them is so small that you have to boost them up. But when you boost them up, you'll hear hiss. Don't panic too much. If you feel confident using a tool like Audition or Audacity or Isotope RX8 or whatever tool you use to edit, they all now have noise reduction filters in them. So just like Tash showed in the previous session, you can use a tool like Audition, record a bit of the silence, right? This is important because that silence is what you're going to teach the software to remove. And Jason sort of made that point in the last session. You're training Audition to listen to only that sound of the noise and then remove it from the entire audio file. So you can do that in post-production and get quite good results. It doesn't mangulate the sound too much. So that's a little bit about the gain settings. Also, some people talk about equalization or EQ, right? Where you boost the treble or the bass or the mid-range or whatever. Let your ears do the listening, right? Be a critical listener. Your ears will tell you when something is wrong, right? And if you're not sure, play it with some friends, like send them the file as well and get them to listen. If you can't pick up an artifact, it's always worthwhile trying to get someone else to have a listen. Two sets of ears are better than one. Just like anything else, it's like writing. You'll often get other people to proofread what you've written. Same with spoken word. I often get people to listen to my pace and my diction and my delivery. And is it flat? Is it too fast? Is it too slow? The same with the quality of the audio. You will hear whether or not you need to fiddle with the sound. Hopefully, like I said, if you've got a decent microphone or a reasonable microphone and you use it well, you shouldn't have to touch it too much. So I hope that helps.
Brilliant, David. Now we've got about 7 minutes left. I reckon 2 questions maybe. I just want to reflect back at you, David. Let your ears do the listening. Love it. Need it on a t-shirt. Narelle says, let your heart do the listening, but I think your ears can also be part of that. But any other questions? No. Amazing advice.
We've answered everything that you need to know.
I know. You're off. You're ready.
Oh, one other thing that I should probably mention. A lot of people have sort of been asking, which mic should I buy? That's the $1 million question, right? It really depends on your budget. But there is this microphone, believe it or not, that actually comes as part of this kit. And it's available from a company called Kogan. They're an online seller.
I'm about to buy this one. Tell me it's good. Tell me it's good.
Yeah, these are actually not too bad. They're not too bad. Really, when you consider it's 39 Australian dollars for this and the arm and the windsock and the mount and the clamp and the cable and the USB adapter to plug it into any computer, that's pretty impressive value for $39. It sounds really good. Like it actually sounds remarkably good for the price. But I'm a bit hypercritical. So one of the things I have noticed is, as Julia mentioned before, I think when we were talking about the gain, right? Because the level coming out of it is a little on the quiet side, it does have a little bit of hiss. But I hear it, but you may not, right? And again, it's very easily removed using any other tools. Does it come in gold? No, it only comes in black, which is such a shame. The actual model number, I don't know, but if you go to the Kogan website...
I've got it here.
You've got it here? Do you want to share the screen and maybe even put the link? Oh, no, there you go.
The link. So David
got
a stunning tech tips. I put it into the chat earlier on, but quite a lot of his tips we decided to just put in a single space for everyone at the conference. And it's number 2 on his lists. And
yeah.
When you say Yeti Blue, you mean Yeti Blue, but in gold. That's actually what you're saying, isn't it?
So unfortunately, Blue is the company.
Yes,
That's the
I'm
company
getting
name. Yeah. Yeti is the model.
I love the fact that we've seen a real version of it, because on the website it looks a bit coppery. That looks a bit...
Well, this one is called Scarlet.
That's pretty.
I do love Scarlet. And it matches my T-shirt, you see. So, but these are fabulous. I mean, these really are... If you're serious about this sort of thing, I would strongly recommend this mic. It's a great mic. There's another one made by a company called Shure. Shure are world famous for their vocal mics. They make a podcasting mic that will make you sound like John Laws even if you're female. It's quite incredible. The bottom end response from that microphone without it sounding muddy is remarkable, but it's about $450. But it is a magnificent mic, and I've forgotten the model. It's a TM7 or something 7, SM7 or something like that. So do have a look out for that one as well. It's a worthy sort of, it's in many respects, it's sort of better than the Yeti. But you get what you pay for. Sure, MV7, that could be the one, John. Yes, thank you. I think that's the one.
Leanne, you're breaking my heart. I've got things to do now. I might not get there in time. We have 3 minutes.
You better get in and buy one of those gold ones before it's too late.
I'm obsessed. This is not about quality. This is about looks. And we've had an hour being told that looks is not what it's about. I don't believe you, David.
Steak knives as well. Well, yes. You may well get them, Tom. I love my steak knife, as shows by my portliness. Eating too much steak.
I would just like to reach out to Mia and Narelle, and if we can take our mic, like if we can unmic ourselves and just have a big clap. I just think amazing women, and it's just been utterly delightful working with you, and it's been lovely to be together. I don't know, Narelle, if you have any last words. Mia, I'm not sure if you're still here, but you're amazing as well, and it's been delightful.
It has been absolutely magnificent. And first of all, I want to say, David, thank you so much for your absolutely amazing advice. And I have said to many people that your advice has, allowed me to purchase new microphones and understand what the tech is about as well. So thank you so much. And I hope that has been a gift to all of you who have been here today. And I wanted to say, this is our last session in the conference, and some of you have been with us all the way through. Others have had the delight of just joining us for this session. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for everyone being involved, particularly Claire and Mia for being my partners in crime as we put all our ideas together and made this happen. I want to give a massive shout out to Dylan, Peter and Corey, who have been magnificent in our chat rooms, have been at every event, have come through to help us and engage with all of you. And so thank you so much, and for taking time out from your PhDs. And we hope that one day we get to feature you guys as well. It's the intention that we are setting. And we also want to acknowledge the La Trobe crew, because they envisaged this conference and they ran the first one last year, and it was a small, intimate, wonderful crew. There was about 25 of us for the day. We were online. We did hope that we were going to be face-to-face, but at that stage, I don't think any of us really knew what our life would be like now. And they called out with the vision that it would be a different host each year, and we would pass this on and we would extend our community and develop it, all with that mission of being able to come together to learn with and from one another. So we want to really reach out and acknowledge to Lauren and the crew at La Trobe for their vision and for planting the seed. It's been an honour for us at Swinburne to host this year, and we are very much looking forward to calling out to the world here who may want to put their hand up and host the 3rd Australian Educational Podcast Conference in 2022. And we look forward to very much being a part of that conference. So it's 5:01. I want to say thank you. It has been an amazing 2 days, an amazing session. I am so inspired, and I hope you all are as well. Thank you so much. We will say goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks again, David. Thank you, Tash, for your amazing session. Bye, everyone.